Hello, powerful people, and welcome back to the Power at Work blog and Power at Work blog labor news. My name's Seth Harris. I'm a senior fellow at the Burns Center for Social Change. Really delighted to have you here and delighted to offer this labor news segment on the main blog. We had been offering it as exclusive content for our Patreon followers, but we decided, what the heck? Let's post it on the blog and also share it with you in podcast form so you can listen to it early on Monday or Monday afternoon, Monday evening on the drive home, if that's how you get home, or when you're on the subway or the bus or walking home, however you do it. You can find it on any of the commercial podcast providers along with all of our other blogcast content. Now, Labor News is a short weekly segment. I choose and comment on 3 or 4 current stories about workers, worker power, unions, collective action of varying kinds. At least 1 or 2 of those stories will come out of the weekly download. Now, for those of you who don't already subscribe, the weekly download is the Power at Work blog's weekly assembly of about 24 articles, opinion pieces, reports, studies, videos, other content from the internet and other media about worker power, unions, and collective action. So to learn more about this week's labor news and other news stories that I'm not going to discuss with you during this short segment, read the weekly download on the Power at Work blog at poweratwork.us/theweeklydownload, or even better, subscribe to the Power at Work blog, and then we will send you the weekly download in your inbox every week. And that way you can keep up with it easily without having to do the extra work of coming to the blog. After you finished watching this labor news segment, go to the front page of the blog, go to the bottom, and you can subscribe there. I should say this week's edition of the weekly download is issue number 54. So here we go with this week's labor news. The first story was featured in the weekly download. It was written by Brett Wilkins for In These Times, although it was first posted on Common Dreams and then reposted on In These Times. Brett is a staff writer at Common Dreams. The story is entitled, Starbucks Just Saw the Largest Single-Day Union Drive in the Company's History. In brief, employees of 21 Starbucks stores across 14 states filed petitions for union representation elections with the National Labor Relations Board. And just in case they didn't get their point across to management with those filings, the employees wrote to Starbucks CEO Laxman Narasimhan. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I don't mean any disrespect. Got a lot of disrespect for Starbucks, but not based on somebody's name. That would be horrible. So the workers wrote to the CEO of Starbucks to tell him they were organizing to join with the 10,000 baristas at 396 stores that already have a union. They have won elections to be represented by Starbucks Workers United, and they are ready to bargain. Now, why does this story matter? Well, it's because Starbucks is engaged in an all-out effort to discourage and undermine union organizing in its stores. It's committed hundreds of unfair labor practices, including illegally firing union supporters during organizing drives. It refuses to bargain or engages only in fake bargaining with the unions that have been lawfully certified by the NLRB. They have a legal duty to bargain, and they are violating that legal duty to bargain. And as if that weren't enough, Starbucks has a case pending at the United States Supreme Court seeking to make it harder for courts to issue injunctions that would, for example, require Starbucks to reinstate workers it has illegally fired. All of these tactics, make no mistake, all of these tactics are about squelching the workers' organizing. Starbucks is communicating they have the power. Even if workers organize, they will never get a contract, and Starbucks will fight the union literally all the way to the United States Supreme Court. In essence, the message is no law and no amount of worker power will improve the lot of Starbucks employees. Management will decide, ownership will decide whether or not Starbucks employees get more money or less money, safety and health protections or no safety and health protections, educational benefits, no educational benefits. So the workers might as well give up. Stop organizing, you might as well give up. We're going to always make the decision. That's Starbucks' message, very simply. The message of these union representation petitions is equally clear. The workers will never give up. They're going to keep fighting. They're going to keep building power. They're going to stand up for one another. Their fight ends when management and labor have a good quality collective bargaining agreement. And allow me to add one fact to the story. The Strategic Organizing Center, which is a multi-union research, advocacy, legal organizing organization, has demanded that the Securities and Exchange Commission requires Starbucks to disclose how much money it has spent on union busting. The SOC says it's $240 million. That's right, $250 million for union busting, according to the Strategic Organizing Center. What the workers in those 21 Starbucks stores are saying to their bosses is, you're going to have to spend a lot more than that, right? And you're going to have to spend it over a much longer period of time because the organizing continues and the fight goes on. As you can tell, I think this is a pretty exciting story. I think Workers United did a great job getting those 21 petitions filed simultaneously and sending the letter to the CEO of Starbucks, and I apologize again for butchering his name. But I love the idea of organizing as the response to union busting.
The Power at Work blog is a project of the Burns Center for Social Change at Northeastern University. The Burns Center develops innovative, participatory, and equitable approaches to solving public problems using new technology. Our faculty and fellows are accomplished, nationally recognized changemakers. Interested in learning more? Go to burns.northeastern.edu and sign up for our mailing list. And you can follow us on social media at Burns Center on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. The Burns Center for Social Change, from demanding change to making it.
Now, our second story also comes from the weekly download. It's an Associated Press story that we pulled from ESPN. Yes, you heard that right. ESPN leading the way on labor stories, not leading the way, sort of accepting a wire service story, but they published it, which is to their credit. And the headline is, Unions Oppose Wizards' Capitals' Planned Move to Virginia. Now, I want to admit to you right up front, this story is especially interesting to me because I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and I've been to Wizards basketball games, and I've been to Capitals hockey games. Let me just say, when I go to the basketball games, I think of them as going to New York Knicks games against the Wizards because I am a big New York Knicks fan, but that's not the point of the story. We're not going to argue basketball here. Here's the point. The billionaire owner of the Wizards and the Capitals, a guy by the name of Ted Leonsis, owns two teams that play in downtown D.C. Let me say, I was around in Washington when the prior owner, a gentleman by the name of Abe Pollin, built the arena and moved his teams from suburban Maryland to the center of the city. And he said he did that, and I think that this has proved to be true, in order to make a meaningful contribution to the redevelopment of the city. Downtown D.C. used to be largely silent at night. It was a downtown that was dedicated to offices, and there was not much of a nightlife or life in the district. Not a lot of people lived down there. There wasn't a lot to do down there. But the arena, and let me also say, there was a lot of economic deprivation as a consequence of that. The city just didn't have a lot of money because there was not a lot of economic development going on in the district, at least in that part of the district. Now, the arena, when it was built in the late 1990s, sparked a renaissance of the downtown area, which is now booming with businesses and restaurants and retail and more cultural institutions than it has ever had. Leonsis doesn't care, right? He wants to make even more money. And so what he's going to do is move the teams across the Potomac River to Alexandria, Virginia. And I should hasten to add that Alexandria, Virginia is a majority white city. The District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. is not. I think that's a meaningful fact. I'll let it stand on its own. Okay. Enter the Northern Virginia AFL-CIO, the local Building and Construction Trades Council, and Unite Here's Local 25, which represents hospitality workers in the area. The AFL-CIO and the building trades are trying to get the companies that would build the arena in Alexandria to sign a project labor agreement, which is a pre-hire agreement with all the building or most of the building and construction trades unions, maybe all of them. And that guarantees that the construction work would be good quality work, be good union jobs, and most importantly, union jobs, right? All of those workers would be represented by a union. Local 25 is trying to do something similar, although you can't have a project labor agreement outside the building and construction trades, according to the National Labor Relations Act. So they're trying to get the companies to agree to what's called a labor peace agreement, which is essentially neutrality. Sometimes it involves card check. And that would in turn increase the likelihood that the workers who are working in the arena and related retail and hospitality businesses would have an increased likelihood of organizing a union. Now, remember, Virginia is a right-to-work state, and it has a right-wing Republican governor who is, by the way, leading the effort to try to steal these two sports teams from the District of Columbia and ensconce them in Alexandria, Virginia. And he's also, let me say, fighting to provide Leonsis, who, by the way, did I mention is a billionaire, with hundreds of millions of dollars in public subsidies in order to build this arena and the surrounding transportation infrastructure and other infrastructure that would be needed to have an arena in the city of Alexandria. But the Virginia legislature, which has to approve the deal, is majority Democrat by a whisker of an eyelash. And the labor unions in Virginia, as is true in most parts of the country, have a lot of influence with Democrats. And let me say, the Democrats in the state legislature had better pay very close attention to this issue. This is a bread and butter issue for working families in Northern Virginia. It's the difference between those jobs being good quality jobs and not so good quality jobs. Not just the construction jobs, but also the retail jobs, the hospitality jobs, and the jobs inside the arena. So even if you are okay with giving subsidies to billionaire sports team owners, and I am not, let me just say, I am not okay with that. But even if you are, I think you can agree that any public money spent on these kinds of activities should come with a guarantee that all the jobs, or as many of them as workers want, will be good union jobs. All of them, or all of them that workers vote to have a union or have a pre-hire agreement through their unions to do the work. Let me just say, utterly unrelated to the union representation issue, I would really prefer that the teams stay in the district. They are an important economic engine for the city, and the downtown DC will definitely suffer if those teams move out of town. But if those teams are going to move, it should only be because workers in Virginia got great jobs and unions in return. That's the least we should expect when government engages in corporate welfare that's otherwise, I think, extremely hard to justify. The third and final story for this week is not in the weekly download, but only because it broke after the download went out last Friday. I'm recording this Sunday evening, the 25th. The story is in several outlets, and the news is that the American Federation of Musicians has a tentative collective bargaining agreement covering basic theatrical motion picture and basic television motion picture operations with the Hollywood studios. They got a deal with the Hollywood studios. Now, collective bargaining agreements are struck every week, so that's not what makes this news. It's newsworthy because the AFM and the Hollywood studios were able to reach an agreement without a strike. There was no strike. Remember, both SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Union, and the Writers Guild of America West, which is the writers' union, had very long strikes in 2023 against the studios before they won terrific contracts. In fact, the SAG-AFTRA strike, which is much larger than the Writers Guild strike, was one of the big reasons that we saw a dramatic increase in 2023 over 2022 in the number of workers who went out on strike and the number of strike days that were lost. You can learn more about that, by the way, by watching the blogcast that we did with Johnny Callis from the Labor Action Tracker. We went through all of this information. So you had two very, very big strikes in Hollywood. But it seems the Hollywood studios and their trade association called the AMPTP learned their lesson from those strikes. Shocking news, I know. But they may have learned their lesson. It took them months, and it took them to losing billions of dollars, but perhaps they learned. It seems they did. And they settled with the musicians. And let me say, we don't have details of the deal yet. We shouldn't. We want to let the members have the opportunity to take a look at it first. But according to the Hollywood Reporter, the AFM says, and I'm quoting here, it has secured historic breakthroughs in streaming residuals, established critical guardrails against the misuse of AI, gained meaningful wage increases and other important gains. This agreement, this is the AFM, the musicians union speaking. This agreement represents a watershed moment for the artists who create the soundtracks for countless film and TV productions. It's closing quote. Now, several of those issues were addressed in the SAG-AFTRA and the WGA contracts after they won their strikes. Certainly, streaming residuals was addressed in those two contracts. The role of artificial intelligence in the movies and television was addressed in those issues as well. I don't want to take anything away from the American Federation of Musicians. You don't get a great deal unless you have solidarity and the union is all together and they know what they want and they focus on it and they communicate what they want very, very, very clearly. But it is possible, I would say likely, that the earlier deals with the writers and the actors sort of cleared the pathway for the musicians union in their negotiations with the Hollywood studios. I also want to note that the unions in Hollywood have been terrific, have really been models of showing solidarity with one another. SAG-AFTRA, WGA, the Teamsters, IATSE, AFM, they all stood together during the strikes and now during the AFM negotiations. And let me say they're going to need that solidarity again, because IATSE, which is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, which is the movie crews and television crews, I'm not doing them justice, but that's very roughly who they represent. They're about to begin their negotiations with the Hollywood studios in the next couple of months. Now, the AFM deal should make us cautiously optimistic that IATSE can win a good contract without a strike, that will have straightforward collective bargaining, and they will be able to reach a deal. But as I've written in the Power at Work blog, there are two sides to these negotiations, and employers can cause a strike if they miscalculate, or if they bring bad information, or if they just act stupidly, as I think the Hollywood studios did with respect to the actors and the writers. You take the wrong approach to collective bargaining as an employer, and you can be the cause of a strike. So we have good news, but let's hope there's even more good news to come in the next few months out of Hollywood. All right, that's our first edition of Labor News on the Power at Work blog, in the can, on the internet. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the Power at Work blog right now so you can keep current with all of our latest content and receive the weekly download in your inbox. You can also follow us on almost all the social media channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, X, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, Patreon. Just search Power at Work or Power at Work blog. I promise you'll find us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the blog again really soon.
Public professionals, would you like to learn how data, digital innovation, and AI skills can improve your work and help you serve your constituents better? The answer is Innovate US. Innovate US offers no-cost learning on the skills you need to succeed in government in the 21st century. Attend a 1-hour weekly workshop or enroll in a course on AI or human-centered design at your own pace. It's all free to you. Visit innovate-us.org today to learn more and sign up. That's Innovate-US. Visit right now.